I'm just going to go through the export settings for MakeHuman for the purposes of our assignment. My recommendation is to keep it simple. Again, especially while you're learning. If you want to go back and add accessories later, go ahead. But I recommend no hair, and clothing is fine if it's tight-fitting clothing. But I would avoid dresses, skirts, baggy clothes. If it's tight fitting, it's just kind of like an extension of the body, really. But if you want to keep it simple and meet the requirements of the assignments, all I need is just a humanoid biped body standing in either an A pose or a T pose. I'm not going to go through adjustments. Just have fun. Make the character what you want. It's very self-explanatory for as far as making the tweaks to the shape and size go. So yeah, have fun with it. One thing that I do want to touch on quickly, if you go to the Pose and Animate tab and go to Pose, you can actually go to Rest Poses over here on the left, and you can see there's a T pose. So if you want to start with your character in more of a rigid T pose as opposed to an A pose, you can just click that and it'll put your character in the T pose to start with, which may be a little bit easier to set up your skeleton for. So I'll leave that up to you. I've just released a video kind of talking about how to match up the A pose and still keep your rig nice and clean. So you can follow that, or you can just use this from the get-go. Either way, once you're ready to export, you can go to Files, Export. I'd recommend FBX. You can also use OBJ. Both will work fine. There's not really any reason to use one over the other, so I'm just going to stick with FBX. And then the only thing I can't quite figure out is the units. I'm going to set it to centimeter because that's what Maya is. But I've found that the character comes into Maya massive, and I think bigger than it should be. And I messed around with these, and none of them are perfect. So I'm just going to set it to centimeter, and I'm going to show you in Maya how to tweak it safely. So that's pretty much all there is to it. Go export, FBX, centimeter. But again, I found none of these are great. So I find no matter what method you choose, you're still going to have to export it in Maya, or sorry, scale it in Maya anyway. So again, I'm going to show that after I get this saved. So I'm going to go in and choose my location. So I'll just throw this in the desktop for now. You should save it in your project folder. MakeHuman example, save that out, and hit export. And now I'm going to switch over to Maya. Which I thought I already had open. We'll play the Jeopardy song here. Da 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 da. Da 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 da. Come on, Maya, I believe in you. Thank you. All right, so here I'm going to go File, and if it's an FBX, you can open it. If it's an OBJ, you will be forced to import. The one thing to keep in mind when opening an FBX, a lot of people miss the fact that by default, Maya may be set to only look for binary or ASCII Maya files or Maya scenes. Make sure you switch this to all files, otherwise your FBX will not appear. But as long as it's set to all files, that should work. If for some reason yours doesn't open, even though you can see it here, import it instead. But in my experience, I've never had to. I've always been able to open FBX files. It's an Autodesk file format, so it makes sense. And it at a glance, it's going to look like nothing's happened. If you zoom out, though, you can see your character is enormous. Now, it's too big, obviously. However, it's easy to fix. I honestly don't care if your character is real world size. I honestly don't. Doesn't matter. When it comes to rigging, you would work to whatever the requirements of the production calls for. And as long as you're consistent with your choices, it doesn't matter. So you can make your character the size of a G.I. Joe action figure, 3 inches tall, 4 inches tall, whatever that is. As long as all of your other characters are proportionate and your universe is proportionately scaled the same, as far as the audience is going to know, it's a 6 foot tall character in a normal sized world. So it's all based on what is relative to the scene. So I don't care, or really don't care, if your character is exactly 6 feet tall. Just make it whatever size you want to start with. Just don't try to change it halfway through the process. So what I'm going to do is select the guy or the person. Can't even remember if I saved it as just the default. I think is actually more female than male, but that doesn't matter either. You can see the pivot is at the center of the grid. Awesome, perfect. All we got to do is come over here with the character selected, change the scale value, and I'm just noticing it's actually set to 10. Try 1. Oh, look at that. Perfect. I honestly don't know why it comes out as 10 when you set it to centimeters. I think personally it may be a glitch, but I can pretty much guarantee this is how everyone will be able to fix it. So as I said, set the scale value to 1 if it's currently 10, and it will probably be perfectly fine. If you still feel it's a little too big, then set the scale to something smaller. If you want it to fit on the grid a bit smaller, and you want to make the grid a bit larger, maybe try 0.5. Select it first. Or 0.25. So you can see now she's a bit smaller still. Again, I'm not too concerned about the scale. Just don't scale it non-uniformly. Make sure you're scaling X, Y, and Z equally. That way it will stay consistent. And then if you do scale it, if you do have to scale it, which most of you will, I do recommend immediately, and don't forget to do this, go into Modify, Freeze Transformations. Whenever you scale something like this and you're going to rig it, you do not want transformations left over when you're rigging. So freeze the transformations. That will set everything back to 0. As far as Maya is now concerned, this is how this character was originally created. And at this point, you're ready to begin the rigging process. So you can put your character on a layer, save the file, get your project set up, and start going through the rigging tutorials. And that's all there is to it.